Today in Lesson 2, The Conscience, the Unbearable Repartee, Sheen continues to give us a deep understanding of the mind of man. He draws a correlation, the difference between man and the rest of the creatures. That man has this ability to reflect back upon himself, and it sometimes creates a tension. We can have a sense of that we're pleased with ourselves, or a sense that we're angry with ourselves. So what is this tension? This tension that we've called conscience. And furthermore, he goes into that when we avoid our conscience, some of the manifestations of avoiding our conscience can manifest themselves into pessimism. I think of Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore. He was always expecting the rain. It was always this dark cloud that was above him. Another aspect of someone who would be in avoidance of conscience can be hypercriticism, that the neighbor can not do anything right. He goes on to further say that as man avoids his conscience, it could even lead to a level of mental illness. Not that to say that all mental illnesses have their origins in a bad conscience, but he gives us this understanding, or this understanding of mental illness as related to conscience in the Shakespearean story of Macbeth, where Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, having killed the king, that Macbeth begins to develop a psychosis, and that he sees the ghost of the king. And Lady Macbeth having to wash her hands every 30 minutes to get the blood off her hands. That this mental illness has its basis in avoidance of conscience. So what is this conscience? Sheen gives us a beginning to understand this conscience from the aspect of, he gives an analogy of the United States government, that the government is made up of the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial. And when he correlates that to conscience, that just as the Congress is there to pass the law, and the president is there to oversee the conformity of that law, and the judicial to judge that conformity, that within our conscience there is this, that thou shalt not, that's within us. And then comes the question is, where does it come from? Sheen gives us this understanding that this conscience seems to be like that of the voice of a parent, in that when we follow our conscience, we have this sense of happiness or joy that's similar to that of a proud parent. But when we avoid our conscience, we have this feeling of as though we've done something wrong against a mother or a father. So he comes to that understanding. Then is not the conscience then the voice of a parent? Who is this parent? This divine thou? He brings us to understanding that it is in fact the voice of God, that God is reaching into our conscience, our mind, and speaking to us, giving us the message that he loves us and he wants us to be happy. God love you.